Law 32. Play to people's fantasies. The truth is often avoided because it is ugly and unpleasant. Never appeal to truth and reality unless you are prepared for the anger that comes from disenchantment. Life is so harsh and distressing that people who can manufacture romance and conjure up fantasy are like oases in the desert. Everyone flocks to them. There's great power in tapping into the fantasies of the masses. Venice had a lengthy era of prosperity, and her residents believed that fate was on their side. However, their fortunes abruptly shifted in the 16th century. The Spanish, Portuguese, Dutch, and English gradually gained control over Europe's riches. Venice could no longer compete, and the final nail in the coffin was the loss of Cyprus to the Turks in 1570. Noble families in Venice fell bankrupt, and the city was shrouded in gloom and misery. They were well aware of their wonderful history, but it had vanished. Rumors circulated in 1589 about a master of alchemy known as Il Bracadino, who possessed a secret material capable of multiplying gold. This mysterious man amassed significant fortune via his powers, and as additional fantasies were created about him, his name became known to the many people of Venice who wished for a bright future once more. The Senate of Venice agreed to invite Bracadino to the city and promised to keep him in a grand palace, treating him as a king. When Bracadino arrived, the city was engulfed in alchemy fever, with everyone studying the topic. On the street corners, books were being sold, but people were scared to bother him, fearful that hurrying him might jeopardize his attempts to restore money back to Venice. However, the city's investment in Bracadino quickly produced many skeptics. The famous alchemist replied that he had already put the odd material in the city's mint, and that if left alone, the gold would increase. However, he stated that if left alone for 7 years, the material would multiply the gold in the mint by 30 times. While many senators consented to Bracadino's requests, others were outraged and refused to tolerate 7 years of letting this man live lavishly at their expense. Finally, they insisted that he demonstrate his abilities, but Bracadino refused, claiming that the challenge had offended him and that he had decided to leave the city. On the invitation of the Duke of Bavaria, he traveled to Padua first and then to Munich in 1590. This was another city that had shared a similar destiny to Venice, having known immense prosperity in the past, but having lately gone bankrupt. The same pattern was replicated there. Bracadino was a young Cypriot who had spent several years in Venice before assuming the guise of the alchemist. He observed how passionately the city desired atonement. He understood human nature, therefore he set sights on Venice from the outset. He traveled and made a name for himself that he knew would stretch all the way to Venice, and his aura of power was much more amazing from a distance. Everyone in Venice wanted to believe in miracles, and he gave them what they wanted. Such is the power of the fantasies that take root in us, especially in times of scarcity and decline. People really believe that their problems arise from their own misdeeds and stupidity. Someone or something out there is to blame, the other, the world, the gods, and so salvation comes from the outside as well. People see what they want to see. Fantasy is easy to control, the truth is not. To gain power, you must be a source of pleasure for those around you, and pleasure comes from playing to people's fantasies. Never promise a gradual improvement through hard work. Rather, promise the moon, the great and sudden transformation, the pot of gold. As you search for the fantasy that will take hold of the masses, then, keep your eye on the banal truths that weigh heavily on us all. Never be distracted by people's glamorous portraits of themselves and their lives. Search and dig what really imprisons them. Once you find that, you have the magical key that will put great power in your hands. The reality. Change is slow and gradual. It requires hard work, a bit of luck, and a fair amount of self-sacrifice, and a lot of patience. The fantasy. A sudden transformation will bring a total change in one's fortunes, bypassing work, luck, self-sacrifice, and time in one fantastic stroke. The temporal Venetians welcomed Bragadino's fantasy, but the serious-minded Bavarians were much more skeptical. Eventually Bragadino was tested, and the Bavarians demanded justice. The alchemist was finally put to death. Reminder: the key to fantasy is distance. The distant has allure and promise, seems simple and problem-free. What you're offering then should be ungraspable. Never let it become oppressingly familiar. It is the mirage in the distance, withdrawing as the target approaches. Never be too direct in describing the fantasy, keep it vague. As a forger of fantasies, let your target come close enough to see and be tempted, but keep them far away enough that they stay dreaming and desiring.